Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, outside of the Iran war, obviously, this is by far, the biggest story, not just in the United States, it is the biggest story in the world. And in fact, there are several pieces in the Wall Street Journal, and I could cite many others. I'm just using the Journal as an example, whereby you're seeing now, and these are front page articles, that this public confrontation and debate between the president and the Pope is now tearing churches apart. It is tearing families apart. It is pitting Christians against Christians, Catholics against Catholics. It is clearly, this debate is shaking the country and in many ways the world to its very, very foundations. And what the media now is desperately trying to do, and you can see it whether it's the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or the Washington Post or the BBC or the Associated Press or CNN or MS Now, is they are trying to use this chasm, this division, this massive disagreement, however you want to call it, between Pope Leo XIV and President Trump as a tool, as a stick, to use the church in order to bash President Trump politically. And what I find really hypocritical, among many other things, frankly disgusting, it turns my stomach. Since when does the New York Times care about the theology of the Catholic Church? Since when do Democrats care about the church or the fundamental teachings or mission of the church? Since when do secular radical leftists at CNN, or you can take your pick, the Washington Post or wherever, since when do they care about the church and its theology and its purpose and mission in the world? Because all the New York Times and the Washington Post and the entire fake news media have done is attack the church for the last 40 to 50 years. On abortion, they attack. On the family, they attack. On the dignity of human life from conception all the way to natural death, taking, for example, an issue like euthanasia or the death penalty, they attack. On the sex abuse scandal, they attack. All they do is make it their... By the way, they've been trying now for 50 years to tie the church to the Nazis and Hitler, to utterly discredit the church, that it's essentially a fascist, Nazi, anti-Semitic institution. That's been their line of attack since I was born. Now, all of a sudden, it's like a miracle, an epiphany. Somebody should call the Vatican and say there's a miracle here. The very same anti-Christian, anti-Catholic leftists, all of a sudden now, they're quoting the Pope chapter and verse. Suddenly his authority must never be challenged. Suddenly, I kid you not, he's the conscience of the world against Donald Trump. And now they're doing puff piece after puff piece after puff piece. Leo, the people's Pope. You can't make this up. I'm telling you, it's beyond, it turns my stomach how they're using him as a political tool, as a political cudgel to just, bash him and attack him and bash him and hammer him. Now, Pope Leo is not letting go. He's not letting go. He went on a four-country or four-nation tour in Africa. As I mentioned a couple days ago, he went to the Grand Mosque of Algiers in Algeria. It is the third biggest, largest mosque in the entire world. It is, by the way, built to be that big, to be a symbol of conquest. And Pope Leo, because the Grand Imam would never meet Pope Leo in a Catholic church would never meet him in the Vatican, because that for them is enemy territory. So Pope Leo went to them, and it was not missed. This fact was not missed by the Muslim world. And he almost basically bowed, I'm sorry to say this, bent the knee to Islam. He went into the Grand Mosque of Algiers and signed the Golden Book. The Golden Book is very dear to Muslims. You sign that book, you are forging an alliance. You're pledging your fealty to Islam. And so Pope Leo signed the Golden Book, forging now an alliance, an ironclad alliance between the Catholic Church and the Vatican with Islam and the Muslim world. It is, as I said, a modern-day Munich. Because from this point forward, the Catholic Church now's position will be to appease Muslims, not just across the Middle East, not just across Africa, but especially in Europe. And right on cue, Pope Leo, on his way back on the plane, said to me two things that are they're mind-boggling. I'm sorry, it's jaw-dropping. Number one, he said that, in particular, that the problem with Muslims in Europe are not the Muslims pouring into Europe. No, 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 no. He was crystal clear. He said the problem is the fear of Muslims in Europe. That it is the birth of these populist anti-immigration parties, conservative populist parties, that are the ones causing problems and fear and anxiety and discord in Europe. And that he is condemning these anti-immigrant parties. Again, he's openly meddling now. Forget American politics. Now he's meddling in European politics in practically every country in Europe. What he's saying is, if you're in Britain, don't vote for reform. If you're in France, you can't vote for Le Pen. If you're in Italy, Meloni, I wouldn't vote for her a second time. If you're in Germany, verboten to vote for the alternative for Germany, AfD, Alternative for Deutschland. He's basically telling the Central Eastern European Catholic countries, open up your borders to Islam. What are you waiting for? And that Muslims now must be embraced, they must be accepted, they must be allowed to keep coming, and they must be treated as co-equals with Christians and any other faith in Europe. He's basically now opening the gates. And by the way, that very point is an Obama talking point. This is what the dear litter said repeatedly during his 2 terms when he was president. That we could have and must have peaceful coexistence with the Muslim world. That Muslim massive migration was to be welcomed. But that, by the way, Iran was to be allowed to eventually have the bomb. That we were to now extend the hand of friendship and appeasement to the mullahs in Tehran. It's no accident, as I said, that, 10 days ago, before this feud really escalated, that David Axelrod, Obama's top advisor, his consigliere, his senior advisor, went directly to the Vatican, had a special meeting with the Pope behind closed doors. No one was allowed in, which is highly unusual. And when they came out, Pope Leo was on every Obama Democrat talking point. Blasting Trump for the war, blasting Trump for the way he's conducted the war, and saying that his war is not just illegal, it is unchristian, it is unjust, and basically went as far as you could say that every Catholic, every Christian, every person of religious faith is morally, theologically obligated to oppose President Trump and his war. And now he's opened the floodgates theologically, morally, intellectually, for Muslims to now continue to pour and invade Europe. And then he pulled out another Obama talking point. And I'm going to get to that, I promise, right after this break. Okay, I read a report that someone who is a member of the Knights of Columbus and is a very devout Catholic and has been attending, meetings of the Knights of Columbus for, 20, 25 years. Deep friendships. They have fish fries. They have meetings together. They'll have a couple of beers. They'll just kind of sort of come together as fellow Catholics and just, hang out and bond. And that this was really one of the highlights of his week. Whenever this would happen, he was always looking forward to it. And he forged some of the deepest, best friendships he ever had. However, the Knights of Columbus have now come out, like many Catholic institutions, blasting President Trump for criticizing the Pope. And in particular, what he said on Easter, using profanity, about, the effing straight, that, as President Trump said, if you don't clear the effing straight, all hell is going to break loose. They say that was profane. That was disrespecting Christians on Easter. And, of course, the famous Tuesday threat that, by tonight, unless things change, the entire civilization will die, never to be brought back again. And for them, they're saying that was a call for genocide, for the murder of innocent civilians. And Pope Leo strongly condemned it. In fact, he's been condemning the Iran war before Trump issued those two true socials. But the point is that the Knights of Columbus said that they stand with Pope Leo against President Trump, and that they condemn President Trump for disparaging and criticizing the Pope. And that the Knights of Columbus have always been defenders of the faith and defenders of the Holy See and the defenders of the Pope. And basically, you're either with us or you're against us. And so this person said 25 years of friendships, 25 years of camaraderie, 25 years of us being together. I never thought I was joining a partisan political institution. I never looked at the Knights of Columbus as an extension of the Democratic Party. And so with a broken heart, he says, I have to quit. Now, I'm mentioning this because this is happening all over the country. It's also happening around the world. This is really splitting Catholics. It's splitting Christians. It's splitting families. By the way, and it's strange because there are many Democrats who are getting so heated in their defense of the Pope, and yet many of them are not even Christian, forget Catholic. Many of them are not even religious. But all of a sudden, it's like, hands off my Pope. I'm like, since when was he your Pope? You're Jewish, or you're an evangelical, or whatever. I'm just, you're an Episcopalian, or you're Hindu, or you're an atheist, or you're agnostic, or whatever. Since when is this guy now, quote, your Pope? Because they see him, or they want to see him, as the most effective weapon they have in really now taking Trump politically down. Because they know that much of his base is not happy with some of these tweets or Truth Socials. The image of him depicting himself as Jesus got blowback even from his staunchest allies and friends. And so they believe that Trump is now vulnerable on this issue. And so they're using the Pope to try to tear Trump's political guts out. Now, as I said on X last night, and I want to repeat it, the Pope is making a fool of himself. and I'm strong as a cradle Catholic, as someone who goes to church religiously every Sunday and every day of obligation, holy day, someone needs to rein him in, because he's continuing to make a fool of himself. And frankly, the more he talks, the worse it gets. So, never mind this grand book that he signed, this alliance, which is to me a betrayal of the Christian West. Never mind now that he is urging all of Europe to welcome as many Muslims as possible into European civilization, which is essentially civilizational suicide. He comes out and says that this idea that Islam is at war with Christianity or with Christians or non-Muslims is a complete fiction. And everyone's like, well, what do you mean? And he says, well, no, let me give you an example. Lebanon. Literally, that's what he said on the plane. You want an example of, his words, quote, peaceful coexistence between Christians and Muslims. He says all you have to do is look at Lebanon. It's incredible how they're peacefully coexisting together. And I saw this story. Honestly, I didn't believe it. I thought it was satire. Something like from The Onion or one of these satire newspapers. No. He really said it. I have the tape. Lebanon was founded as an Arab Christian country. It was the one country that was founded for persecuted Christians in the Middle East. And what do you think happened to Lebanon? It then got invaded by Muslim militias. They fought a 15-year civil war in which countless Christians were slaughtered. I mean, it was a bloodbath. They were massacred. And now Hezbollah controls much of Lebanon. Okay, lines are jammed. I'm going to go to the phone lines. Let me just final exclamation point. Now, maybe I'm reading too much into it. And if I am, please tell me. I'm very open to changing my mind. In fact, to be honest, I want to change my mind. I don't like coming to this conclusion. I don't. I really don't. But I can, if I'm not here to tell you the truth, as I see it, then what's the point of me being behind this microphone? So, and this is the way I see it. When you have Pope Leo now clearly colluding with Obama, there's no question now, the Chicago Democrat political machine, regurgitating Obama's own talking points about peaceful coexistence with Islam, appeasing the mullahs in Tehran, turning a blind eye to their nuclear weapons program, as Obama deliberately did in his second term. And now this call that you have no right to stop Muslim migration into Europe, that in fact the problem in Europe are not the Muslims, the Muslim migrants who are with thousands and thousands of murders and rapes and just wreaking havoc all across the continent. No. It's the anti-immigrant sentiment in Europe, the anti-immigrant populist parties that want to secure their borders and stop this invasion. They're the problem. They're the ones causing fear and anxiety and hatred. And, you know, in other words, they must be defeated just like Trump must be defeated. That's Obama. I mean, it's the radical left. It's globalism to its core. Yes. It's, you know, he's extending what Pope Francis started. There's no question. But almost the phrases that he uses, the talking points, it's straight from Obama. And so when he says Lebanon, now remember, he picked Lebanon. He didn't pick another country. He deliberately chose Lebanon. And he said, well, that's the model. It's the perfect example. of Christian-Muslim peaceful coexistence. And I'm putting peaceful coexistence in quotes. Those were his exact words. And he said, look, they work together, they live side by side, they help each other. It's beautiful. It's a model. And as I just explained to everyone, I'm giving you a quick, this is Encyclopedia Britannica. Like, either he's incredibly ignorant. It's either door one or door two. Either he's appallingly historically ignorant to the point that it's embarrassing, or what he has in store for Europe is diabolical. Either this is nefarious or this is stupid. Pick, it's door one or door two. But either way, it's bad. Lebanon was formed, just very quickly again, as an Arab Christian country. Christian. In fact, it was a place where Christians persecuted the Middle East. They said, no, you're going to, the way the Jews had their own state, Israel, you're going to have a state, an Arab Christian state. So Christians can no longer be persecuted. And then it became, by the way, it was called, Beirut was the Paris of the Mediterranean. The most, along with Israel, the most prosperous country in the Middle East. There's no question. Highest education, fashion. You should see the fashion the women had. Some of the most brilliant architecture, an incredible nightlife. It was hopping. And then it began to slowly be invaded by Muslim militias, both Sunni and Shia. And Christians being Christians turned the other cheek, forgive, welcome the stranger, take care of the stranger. And then the Muslim population went to 10%, and then to 20%, and then to 30%, and then to 40%. You see where the trend is going. And then they said, no, to hell with it. Even though you let us in, now we're going to run this place. And it sparked, if you remember in the 70s, I was growing up, it was on the news every night, a vicious, bloody 15-year civil war. It was like the war that would just never end. Christians were slaughtered. I'm talking massacre after massacre after massacre. And then the country, eventually it stopped, fragile, barely held together. Christians now are a minority in Lebanon, and an increasingly persecuted minority in Lebanon. And now, over the last 20 years, Hezbollah has essentially taken control of the entire south of Lebanon, and now they're moving into Beirut itself. So my point is, in a nutshell, if you want to talk about peaceful coexistence, the last country in the world, let me ask any Lebanese who listens to this show, has there been peaceful coexistence between Christians and Muslims in Lebanon? I'm telling you, they're spitting out their coffee as they're listening to this. Like, who can peddle this kind of dreck? Now, either he's incredibly, as I said, ignorant, or, and this is my fear, what he's really saying is Europe should be like Lebanon. If Lebanon is the model, that's what he said, it's the example. Follow Lebanon. So Christian countries like Lebanon welcome the Muslims in. And eventually they will take over. Now, if it is this second interpretation, and by the way, that's what Obama wants. That literally is Obama's plan. You see, we missed that in his presidency, and I missed it. It wasn't just, it was me. I caught on later in his second term. But in his first term, I thought he wanted a socialist transformation of America. What I didn't see is he wanted an Islamo-socialist or Islamo-communist transformation of America. A la, say, Mamdani in New York, or what you're seeing now all across Europe. That's what the Pope is now pushing. There's no question in my mind. Now, if that is the case, because sometimes, people are just ignorant and naive and not very smart, and they can be led by the nose and influenced by other people around them. But if this is part of a larger nefarious plan, that's heresy. That's heresy. And there is a precedent. Pope Benedict retired. He didn't finish his term. No, he didn't die. I mean, he didn't die in office. Okay, I don't want to get into the conspiracies around Benedict. I thought, to be my honest opinion, I think he was poisoned. That's an open secret in the Vatican because the left wanted to push him out. Because theologically, he was building an argument now not to allow Muslims into Europe, saying that the Christians had to return to what they used to be, which was real defenders of the faith. And the Marxists who infiltrated the church did not want Benedict to finish his papacy and finish his work. So I believe he was poisoned. You want my honest opinion? There it is. Okay, but let that go. The point is, there's a precedent that a pope can retire while in office. Maybe it's time for Pope Leo to take that road. Because what he's saying now, it's very dangerous. And I want to congratulate President Trump. I really do. I don't like the image. I thought that was a mistake. I'm going to be honest. I get it where he was coming from. He was trolling. He was trying to be funny. I understand that. But I think it hurt him unnecessarily by doing that. But what he has now done by calling out Pope Leo and really exposing his far left beliefs and his political connections to the Democratic Party, and just how disconnected from reality he is, I think he's done the world, not just Catholics and the Catholic Church, I think he's done the world a favor. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go right back to Aaron in Nevada. Aaron, sorry we had to cut you off there. Please pick up where you left off. Aaron, I don't know if you're a lapsed Mormon or you were a Mormon and are no longer a Mormon, or you're just a flawed Mormon, because I know you've mentioned your Mormon faith in the past. So I'm just going to say, as someone of Mormon heritage, how do you feel about this feud now between the Pope and the President?
First question, the phrase is jacked Mormon. I still believe. So I'm not, I keep telling my father I'm not an atheist. I still believe. I just work on Sundays. I'm just too busy to go to church. Jeff, I can tell that you feel like you are walking on eggshells by criticizing your Pope. Let me assure you, you are right. Your rant against the Pope the other day for saying that he is not talking about Christians being murdered by Muslims in Africa was spot on. I thought the image of the Pope blessing ICE was an AI meme until you confirmed it was real. Let me add this log on the fire real quick. You were also right about Dan Bongino. I didn't want you to be right about him. I almost called your show disagreeing with you, but you nailed it. You should go see Dan Bongino's YouTube channel. Just go to his comment section. He's getting hammered. I haven't listened to him since, but let that go. Three more big points I want to make. I mentioned this with the Don Lemon call. The left is jealous of religion because they don't understand why we worship God but don't worship the government. Religion is the final frontier that the globalists have not completely taken over yet. They conquered education, the deep state, Hollywood, media, and corporations. Religion, that's their last pillar they need to take. So you're right. This is the globalist Pope. Now, here's where I will praise Mormons over Catholics. I actually dated a Catholic girl for a while. We're still friends. And I told her one thing that's stopping me from marrying her is I want to raise my kids in the Mormon religion. And I told her I have not forgiven the Catholic Church over the priest scandal. When we had our situation with Warren Jeffs, who was marrying 12-year-olds, we turned him into the FBI. Anyway, on to Trump. Big last point.
Sorry, Aaron. I don't want to get too personal, but so when you said this to her, what did she say to you, your Catholic girlfriend?
She understood. She agreed that the Catholic Church could have handled the priest situation a lot better. She's not as conservative. She's conservative on social issues, but she broke my heart by telling me she voted for Kamala Harris in 24.
You dodged a bullet. Aaron, you dodged a bullet. God intervened, believe me. No, Aaron, that's not for you. That's not for you, Aaron. Okay, so now, Aaron, your last point. Go ahead, my friend.
Was Trump in the wrong to do the AI image of Jesus? Yes. He violated the second and third commandments, and he should apologize and repent. But I would like to compare Trump to another biblical figure, and that is the Apostle Paul. He had a motto, fight the good fight. Christians who were persecuted, and keep this in mind, Paul started off as Saul. He killed one of the apostles. He persecuted Christians. Then Jesus appeared to him and said, Saul, why do you persecute me? And then he converted so many Gentiles. He was a big asset to Christianity. And they kept telling him, we're being persecuted by the Jews and the Romans. What do we do? Paul said, fight the good fight. Trump's the next Democrat. Fight the good fight. And I want to mention this. I had a religious moment. I had a good Easter, Jeff. I decided to dip into the scriptures, and I caught something Paul said that went over my head. Before Paul was executed, he was asked, what was your greatest triumph? Converting all those Gentiles, meeting Jesus? Paul said, I did it. I kept the faith. And I'm like, wait a minute. This guy struggled with his faith. He saw Jesus with his own two eyes, and yet he had doubts. He sinned. He had flaws. That made me feel, I feel guilty about going to church because I work for a casino, but I said to myself, dude, what's my excuse for not going to church now? The Apostle Paul himself said his biggest struggle was keeping the faith. And before he died, he said, I did it. I kept the faith. I won the good fight. Christians, we need to fight the good fight.
Oh, beautiful. Honestly, Aaron, beautiful. Beautiful. Really well said. Really powerful and very well said. Aaron, thank you very, very much for that call. And look, that's what I admire about President Trump. For all of his flaws, and he has flaws. I don't think Trump supporters do themselves favors when they seem to, he doesn't do anything wrong or he never makes mistakes. No, he's a human being. He's a flawed human being like all of us, but he's a fighter. He's a warrior. And just, and I made this point to a liberal on an email exchange, and they had no comeback. I said, well, who overturned Roe v. Wade? Trump. Which we thought was unimaginable in our lifetime. Who stopped the ISIS genocide against Christians in the Middle East? I mean, hundreds of thousands were being slaughtered. Trump. Who restored religious liberty in our country? Trump. Here, look. It just broke again, thanks to Tulsi Gabbard. The Biden Department of Justice, it's now been fully confirmed. We have the documents, the emails, the paper trail. We're waging an anti-Catholic campaign against traditional Catholics. They were locking up pro-lifers in jail for simply praying in front of abortion clinics. They were spying on Catholics in the Catholic Church, in the pews. Joe Biden and Obama were suing nuns over health care. They were going after nuns, for God's sake. And you've got these liberal Catholics saying, I'm Joey, or I can't vote for Trump. He's the Antichrist. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're going to vote for the party that literally did everything it could to persecute Christians and persecute Catholics? And Trump has undone all of that and exposed all of that. So, that's the thing about Trump. I've said it before. God writes straight with crooked lines. And I love the way Aaron said it. He fights the good fight. And to me, that's why you have to respect him. And I got to tell you, I think on this, with the Pope, no one has exposed the Pope more than Donald Trump. And by extension, the corruption behind the Pope at the upper echelons of the Vatican. And they're obvious now, deep, deep ties and connections to the globalists, and especially now to the Democratic Party. Now, let me just say this, okay? And this, again, this is the checkmate argument. Don't take my word for it. Look it up, okay? Just look it up. When Pope Leo XIV was then Cardinal Robert Prevost, or Prevost, however you pronounce it, Robert Prevost, Cardinal Prevost. He was active on then Twitter. Okay, now it's X, but then it was Twitter. And guess what? He was an Obama Democrat. When he was a cardinal, before he became the Pope, he was a rabid, staunch, public Obama Democrat on his Twitter account. He kept defending Obama. He supported Obama. He kept bashing Trump. By the way, criticizing J.D. Vance, a Catholic, a very devout Catholic, a very good Catholic. And on open borders, he attacked Trump. On illegal immigration, he attacked Trump. On gun control, he attacked Trump. On issue after issue after issue, he was a partisan Democrat, a Chicago leftist who sided with Obama and Joe Biden against Donald Trump. So now, the moment he becomes Pope, that whole thing on his Twitter account became erased. So they were trying to hide his partisan left-wing beliefs. But the internet is forever, and social media is forever. And so we've tracked down the posts. So nothing has changed. He hasn't changed his stripes. He just changed the name. He just went from Cardinal Robert Prevost to now Pope Leo XIV. So, and he keeps going on about the gospel of the message. The message of the gospel. Oh, I'm just talking about the message of the gospel. Really? Tell me, where does the gospel say you have to embrace gun control? Well, I'm sorry, where does that say that in the gospel? Can you point that out to me? Tell me, where in the gospel does it say you must have open borders? Where does it say illegal immigrants can flood country after country after country? That if you have an invasion, you must allow the invaders to occupy and take over. I'm sorry, show me where it says that in the gospel. Tell me, where does it say in the gospel that Iran must have a nuclear bomb? Just tell me. Show me in the gospel where it says we must have peaceful coexistence with Muslims. And if they want to invade your country, you let them invade your country. I'm sorry, show me where that says that in the gospel. I must have missed it. So correct me if I'm wrong. Hey, you phony, you fraud, you. Now, this is not just a philosophical or a political or a theological debate. The Pope is, in Catholic theology, the Pope is the vicar of Christ. He stands on the rock of St. Peter. He is the representative of the church and the mission of Jesus to the world. The one thing you must never be is a political hack. Like, I'm being serious now. May God strike me if I'm lying. I'm worried about the man's soul. I'm like, I'm sorry. You realize what you're doing? You know what kind of responsibility you've been entrusted with? And you're being played by Obama and Axelrod and the Democrats and now the liberal media in the United States and in Europe? Can't you see you're obviously being used? The last thing you're ever supposed to be is a partisan political operative. And that's almost exactly now what he's become. And it's insulting enough that he's meddling in American politics. But now, look, I'm telling you, they're living in Britain. They're living in France. They're living in Italy. They're living in Germany. Oh, my God. The Catholic heartland is in Central Europe. Okay, in Europe. In Europe, the Hungarians are going nuts. The Poles are going nuts. The Croatians are going nuts. The Slovaks are going nuts. They're like, whoa. The Lithuanians are going nuts. They're like, whoa, 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 whoa. We got to let in Muslims? What? Had Pope Leo been the Pope 500 years ago, I'm telling you, when the Ottoman Empire and the Muslim hordes were literally at the gates of Vienna, Europe would have fallen. He would have welcomed them in. He would have said, come on in. Take it all. Just take it. Take all of Europe. Take it. Someone needs to rein this Pope in and rein him in now. Because Trump even said this. He said, you're doing damage to yourself. You're doing damage to the papacy. He goes, but I'm telling you, you're going to do real damage to the Catholic Church. And the president is right. Dane in Florida. Thanks for holding, Dane, and welcome.
Yes, Jeff. Before the Pope takes on being the new leader in the world of politics, maybe he should clean up his own house. Maybe he should look into the Catholic Charities child trafficking in the world. Maybe he should address all the children who have become victims of pedophile priests. Maybe he should take down the walls of the Vatican instead of telling America to take theirs down. Okay? Maybe he should make St. Peter's Square the new welcome encampment for Muslims. Maybe he should take and sell all the unlimited wealth in the Vatican that can feed the entire world for 100 years. Pope Leo, judge not, lest you be judged. In other words, keep your papayas hole shut in politics and clean up your own kingdom. Jeff, do you agree with at least 10% of what I'm saying?
I agree with 100%. What 10%? I agree with 100%. Everything what you just said. In fact, to be honest, I think maybe it's time for, I know Trump was asked, do you want to meet with him? And I'll play the cuts. There's some really good cuts I want all of you to hear. And Trump said, no, there's no need. I don't want to meet him. Just, I know where he stands. He knows where I stand. But in a way, part of me wants him to go to the Vatican and with the Pope standing right next to him, outside, surrounded by those 40, 50-foot walls and say, well, Holy Father, with all due respect, you're against my wall. You say my wall is sinful. Jesus is opposed to walls. That's what you said. So by your logic, and then just turn around a la Ronald Reagan and say, Pope Leo, tear down this wall. Or else you're a hypocrite. You can have 40, 50-foot walls to protect you, but we can't have a wall to protect us? And by the way, Dane, just so that you know, this is kind of Vatican inside baseball. If you or I or anybody illegally enter the Vatican, okay, and as illegal immigrant, not only are you stopped and deported right away, you're arrested, 3 years in jail. Okay, it's an Italian jail. It's not in the Vatican. There's no jail in the Vatican, but you're arrested, 3 years in jail. 3 years in jail. Just for trying to enter the Vatican illegally. 3 years in jail. We're just deporting them. Well, that's all we're doing. We're not even putting them in jail. I'm not talking about the murderers, the rapists, the drug dealers. I'm saying you come into our country illegally. We go, okay, we grab them. Bye-bye, hasta la vista, and we send them back. They're 3 years in jail. You can't make it up. So I think, to be honest, that's why many, many Catholics don't take him seriously. certainly real Catholics, conservative Catholics, faithful Catholics, they look at this and they're like, no, Dane, we know it's the money. They're dependent on the billions of dollars, Catholic charities, NGOs, and it's not just illegals from South America. It's Muslims from North Africa and the Middle East that are being resettled across Europe. They now need the money. They need the money to settle all of these sex abuse scandals and cases. So now they're morally conflicted. And I believe they've made a deal with the devil. But anyway, that's me. Dane, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. You follow the money, and it all will make sense. Lou in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Lou, and welcome.
Yeah, good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Lou.
I hope I want to ask you two questions at the end of this call because I think they're both very important. But I'm glad, but I'm glad you touched on the whole the history thing. The one thing I do have to say, a couple real quick things before I get to my points, is that if you want to talk about Lebanon, you should talk to Bridget Gabriel. People should go on YouTube and look up Bridget Gabriel, see what she has to say about her life as a Christian in Lebanon, what they did to her and her family. That's for sure. I mean, he's way off base about Lebanon, and also consider the fact that there's been over 48,000 terrorist acts throughout the world, and this is not just dealing with the West, but with Hindus and Buddhists and all kinds of other religions around the world, from Muslims, Islamic radicals, resulting in over about 250,000 deaths since 1979. I mean, this is the Pope has to take these types of things into account. But the thing, as you said, is that you triggered that was so important was you probably know this. Who is Pope Leo X?
I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry.
The 10th called the bulwark of Christianity.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
You should know that. Croatia.
Yeah, that's right. He called Croatia Antimuralis Christianitatis in Latin, which is the ramparts or the bulwark of Christendom. And that's when Croatia held off the Ottoman empires, the Ottoman armies and the hordes as they were about to try to breach Vienna. And it was Pope Leo X that rallied the West. And he was one of the greatest popes we ever had. Pope Leo XIV is no Pope Leo X. You're absolutely right, Lou.
No history is ever taught. They don't teach what's going to happen to history. They don't teach anything about Charles Martel. And as you mentioned, the siege of Vienna with Prince Sobieski holding off the Ottoman hordes of Vienna, an amazing battle, one of the most amazing battles in history. That's what the popes and that's what the Europeans used to do. Now they're welcoming these people in, and it's horrible to think about this. But he's even set up a prayer room in the Vatican for Muslims. This is basically the Obama Pope. And they're trying to basically divide the West and destroy America. And I really think that we have to understand. I wish you would explain to people a little bit more about the history of those times when Europe actually stood up to the Ottomans and the Muslims and held them off and kept them out of there. But the two questions I want to ask you. Number one, okay, let's go to this one. Number one, if they're successful, if Obama and the Pope are successful, what does this mean for America? What will America look like with the open borders and a Muslim invasion in America? That's it. That's number one. And also, how will it affect the rest of the world? Other countries will take advantage of the United States, like China. And the second question is, what do you think the Muslims really think of Pope Leo? Is he just like their useful idiot? I mean, is he just being manipulated?
They have no respect for him.
They're probably laughing at him.
Yeah, you're right. No, they have no respect for him. They don't. They think he's a pawn, a sycophant. Okay, lines are loaded. Dave in Essex. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Dave?
Jeff, I have to admit one thing. Yesterday, Jeff, if I wasn't parked at a parking space, I would have had an accident, Jeff. With Bill saying he agrees with you, Jeff, that was the best thing all week I've heard. I would have had an accident, Jeff, if I was on 95.
No, that was a miracle. That was a real miracle, Dave. Hell froze over yesterday, Dave.
He must have gotten the right medication, Jeff. That's all I can say. They finally got his medication straightened out.
Dave, my friend, what do you make of all this?
Jeff, honestly, Trump said it straight out. The Pope has no right to say anything about the war that's going on. Okay? He needs to stay back and mind his own business. And Jeff, I don't trust him. If he's going to start doing this, it's almost like he wants to take over everybody who goes to church, Jeff. Whatever he says they have to do. Jeff, there's a lot more churches out there than besides the Catholic Church. And Jeff, I'm telling you, I know that you love God and love Jesus and want your family to grow up in a good Christian faith. Jeff, there's this good church right up here in Denver. It's called the Great Rock Church. It's an awesome church, Jeff. Check it out some morning. It's straight out. The pastor up here is awesome. And Jeff, he tells us straight out, right out of the scriptures. He doesn't judge anybody about anything. And it's an awesome church, Jeff. I guess I don't even know that up front. But the Pope has no right to say anything to anybody about anything. And the Knights of Columbus, they've been around for years, Jeff. So it's like this guy who says it straight out about the Knights of Columbus, and he quits the Knights of Columbus, Jeff. He has every right to say what he said.
Well, that's the thing I find just incredible is you're seeing now how many liberal Catholics are siding with the Pope, and they're no different than secular liberals. They're just as intolerant. It's just so if you side with Trump, and I don't see how you can't on this issue. Now, look, you may be against the war. That's something else. But when Trump says, hey, look, mind your own business. And, and Trump, by the way, rightly says, hold on. Do you know that the mullahs just slaughtered 42,000 innocent, unarmed protesters just a couple months ago? And you, Mr. Pope, you were silent. You said nothing. Do you know that Iran has been killing civilians in other countries during this war? And you said nothing? How about when they keep calling death to America? That's okay? Death to Israel? That's okay? But I make one Truth Social post, which was, as Trump said, look, it worked, didn't it? I.e., it was leverage. He's saying, look, I wanted to scare the living daylights out of them. I wanted to talk to them in a language that these barbarians could understand. And he said, did they come to the negotiating table? Yes. So what's the problem? Did I bomb their bridges? No. Did I destroy their civilian infrastructure? No. Did I wipe out their power plants and their water supply? No. So what's the problem? But when they chant death to America or slaughter tens and tens of thousands of innocent, unarmed protesters, you say nothing. Or when Christians are being slaughtered in Iran, or in Syria, or in Nigeria, a modern-day pogrom against Christians, many of them Catholics. Some are Protestant, yes, but many of them are Catholics. And you say nothing? You don't speak out for your own flock? But here you are defending the mullahs? And then to me, this is what's, Dave, this to me is where he crossed the line. I'm talking about the Pope. You don't meet with David Axelrod. You don't meet with Obama's people. And you don't coordinate with them talking points to go after the President of the United States. Because now you've made the papacy, the Pope, the office of the papacy, a communications mouthpiece for the Democratic Party. It is an absolute perversion of the office. It's, and he's done it on the border, on the wall, on deportation. As I said, when he was a cardinal, he was, all he did was support Obama and bash Trump. Look at him when he was Cardinal Robert Prevost. Take a look at his posts. There's no difference between him and Joe Biden. You're like, I can't tell the difference. And, you name it, every Democrat talking point, whether it's climate change, whether it's gun control, whether it's flooding the country with illegals. Trump is a racist. Trump is a white supremacist. J.D. Vance is even worse than Trump. Okay, I just want to play a couple of cuts. This was the president yesterday, again, outside of the war with Iran and the blockade, which, by the way, is really it's stinging now the Iranian economy. It's really taking a hold and like a vice grip. I mean, it's really putting the screws into the mullahs. But that's another issue for another day. This is the biggest story, no question. This feud between the president and Pope Leo XIV. And the press corps clearly siding with Pope Leo, and they think now they can do real damage to Trump. So the reporters are asking him, well, why would you be arguing with the Pope? Aren't you worried this is going to really damage your image? And Trump gives, I think, a really good response. Roll cut 3, Mike.
Why are you fighting with the Pope? And are you worried it's upsetting your...
No, I don't. I have to do what's right. The Pope has to understand that. Very simple. I have nothing against the Pope. His brother's MAGA all the way. I like his brother, Louis. I'm not fighting with him. The Pope made a statement. He says Iran can have a nuclear weapon. I say Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And if the Pope looked at the 42,000 people that were killed over the last 2 or 3 months as a protester with no weapons, no nothing, I mean, you take a look at that. So I can disagree with the Pope. I have a right to disagree. I have a right to disagree with the Pope.
He's completely right. Look, I'm going to play another cut. I got to say this about Trump. He says, look, whoa. Don't make me out to be the bad guy. I'm responding to him. He was attacking me in the Iran war, by the way, and his border policy and his deportation policy. But Trump let all that go. He said, but now, in the last couple of weeks, especially after meeting Axelrod, he's intensified his attacks in homilies, in public speeches, on social media. And he said, no. Hey, whoa. I said to him, look, I'm not going to allow the mullahs to have a nuclear weapon. I have the right to my opinion. And you're lecturing me about a couple of posts at Truth Socials. What about the 42,000 that were slaughtered? Those innocent, unarmed protesters. So let me get this straight. He can attack me, but I can't disagree with him? Now, and he makes this point again. He goes, look, I'm not even saying he doesn't have the right to criticize me or to attack me or to disagree with me. That's fine. He can speak his mind. I'm not afraid. But don't tell me I don't have the right to hit him back. He has the right to criticize me. But then I have the right to disagree with him and criticize him right back. In other words, so he can just keep delivering haymaker after haymaker, blow after blow, criticism after criticism. And what, I'm just supposed to stand there and take it? Because he happens to be the Holy Father? The Pope? No, I'm sorry. It doesn't work that way. If you get into the political arena, and the Pope is now getting into the political arena, then, you make political attacks. You're going to get political attacks in return. I'm sorry. That's life. The expression, what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. Listen now to President Trump. Roll cut 4, Mike.
Nothing. I have no disagreement with the fact the Pope can say what he wants, and I want him to say what he wants, but I can disagree. I think that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. If they do, the whole world would be at jeopardy. The Middle East will be blown up, and the whole world will be at jeopardy. We're very close to making a deal. That'll be a great thing. The Pope has to understand, Iran has killed more than 42,000 people over the last few months. Think of it, protesters. without guns, without anything. They were totally unarmed protesters. The Pope has to understand that. This is the real world. It's a nasty world.
So what he's really saying, by the way, I think he's being kind, if you want to know the truth. But what he's really saying is, look, Pope Leo, with all due respect, I think you're kind of living in the clouds a little bit, in an ivory tower. You're being a little bit gullible, a little bit naive, a little bit unrealistic. You don't really know the real world, how evil and vicious and murderous many of these Islamic leaders can be. I know you're signing their golden book and you're talking peaceful coexistence, but with them, peace is only one way. From you, not from them. So basically he's saying, like, look, you really don't know what you're talking about, with all due respect. So stay in your lane. Now, let me just play one more, and then I'm going to go right back to the phone lines. And then because they're somehow saying, well, you're muzzling him. He goes, who's muzzling him? That I ever want. It's true. Look at him. Trump never said, hey, he's not allowed to criticize me. Trump said, no, he's criticizing me. That's fine. I just have a right to criticize him back. Roll cut 4A, Mike.
As far as the Pope and saying what he wants, he can do that. Now, I know the Pope's brother. He is a big MAGA person. He's got MAGA all over his house. His name is Louis. He's actually a great guy. And I'm sure the Pope is a great guy. I haven't met him. But I disagree with the Pope. If the Pope would allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon, you can't do that.
So there you go. Now, let me ask you, by the way, very mature, very adult-like, very statesman-like, saying, look, he has his position, I have my position, I'm not telling him not to have his, don't tell me not to have mine. To me, I don't know how you can disagree with Trump on this. Am I wrong? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Who do you think started the feud between the Pope and President Trump? Who started this very public argument and debate between Pope Leo XIV and President Trump? A, the Pope, B, President Trump. To me, I think it's A all the way. I think Pope Leo was looking for a fight, and I think he got a fight. But that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. You can also vote via X. And yep, I was really active on X again last night. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in national ER. Jerry on the Cape. Thanks for holding, Jerry, and welcome.
Comrade.
Comrade, how are you, my friend?
I'm Catholic.
So as a Catholic, Comrade Jerry, where do you stand on this?
12 years of Catholic school, altar boy. I believe A also. But, Jeff, I want to speak about the papacy for a minute.
Yes.
Being a Catholic and everything, I don't agree with a lot of the stuff, the way that the church has gone. I mean, I've had friends of mine say, oh, you should come to St. Mary's, or you should come to St. this or St. that, different churches. And you go there, and they start giving you a sermon about politics, basically. They start talking about the illegal aliens. They start talking about, welcoming in newcomers. And this, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear the message of Jesus Christ. I don't want to hear that. But, Jeff, you remember Pope Francis, correct?
Yes.
We can both agree, and I think most of the audience will agree, he was a full-blown communist.
Yes.
Jeff, have you ever watched any of his Easter? Now, for me, The holiest day of the year, I believe, is Easter.
Yes.
The resurrection and the ascension of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Jeff, have you ever watched any of the masses that Pope Francis conducted while he was Pope?
No.
Jeff, you have to look at these videos. And you have to listen to the music and look at all the background art and imagery. You're not going to believe it.
Give me an example, Jerry. What kind of things was the Pope doing on Easter Sunday?
He was preaching satanic things, Jeff. He wasn't preaching about Jesus and our Almighty Creator. He wasn't preaching about that. It was satanic. You know, remember when Joey had that
Jerry, can you hang on? I'm up against the break. Okay, I'm going to go back to Jerry on the Cape, I promise. But I want to ask all of you, the media now, and I can cite you, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, New York Times, the London Times, BBC, CNN, I could go down AP, Associated Press, USA Today. I could just go on and on, Boston Globe. All of them are singing from the same choir book, which is that the Pope now has emerged, they say, as Donald Trump's most formidable and effective opponent. And this is the argument they're making, that Pope Leo is popular across Europe, popular across America, popular across the world. They say he has higher ratings than Trump. This is the argument they're making. And that by going after Leo, by criticizing Leo, Trump now looks like the bully and the villain. And that Leo is a methodical, this is what they're claiming, I'm not kidding, that he is a methodical, Machiavellian, shrewd political operative who knows how to run circles and outmaneuver Trump. And that this is what you're now seeing. You're seeing a very savvy Pope who's now running circles around Trump and winning the PR war in this feud between the president and the Pope. Now, my first response is, since when is the Pope supposed to be a, quote, methodical, savvy political operative? He's the vicar of Christ. The last thing this guy should be is some kind of a politician. Okay, so that already to me reveals what's really happening behind the scenes, which is that Obama wants to infiltrate the Catholic Church, and that the globalists and the Marxists want to make a full takeover of religion. As somebody earlier said, they've captured the schools, they've captured academia, they've captured corporations, they've captured the media. Well, the last frontier is religion. And one of the crown jewels is obviously the Catholic Church. So it seems to me that this is part of a larger political operation by the globalist Marxist left, clearly spearheaded by Obama and the Democrats with their connections to Leo. And now they're using the papacy as a way to attack and try to politically hammer President Trump. And so my question to you is, do you think it's effective? And do you think Leo is winning this public feud with Trump? I don't think he is. I think, in fact, if anything, he's making a fool of himself, as I mentioned about Lebanon, and now his new position regarding Islam. But that's me. I want to hear from you. Let's go right back to Jerry on the Cape. Jerry, you were making, I thought, an excellent point that Leo really is an acolyte, really a student of Pope Francis, and that he's just now carrying on the Francis Marxist legacy, the globalist legacy of Francis. He's basically Francis the sequel. And you said, for example, Easter Sunday, when Francis was the Pope, what you saw, the masses that he would hold in the Vatican or on Easter Sunday, shocked you. And the term you used was they were satanic. Please, Jerry, give me an example of what you mean by the fact that Francis would hold some of these satanic masses in your view on Easter Sunday? What in particular shocked you?
Jeff, the imagery of Baphomet, very disturbing. And it was all in these black and red colors. Like, remember when Biden gave that speech in Philadelphia where he told us all how much he hated us?
Yes.
The background colors was similar to that. It was I found it very disturbing. I mean, I was shaking when I was watching it. I had tears in my eyes. I couldn't believe it. I don't remember exactly what year it was, but I watched every year when he did those masses. Every year it was something different, satanic-wise. It was awful. I was deeply, profoundly affected by it. That's the only way I know it. I couldn't believe it. I was just in total disbelief.
Well, you know, Jerry, I mean, I have to be honest. I never watched the Pope on Easter Sunday, so I'm just going to take your word for it, obviously. But I do know there were two incidents that I personally saw on film, that really disturbed me. One was a very dear friend of ours, Grace and ours. She lives in Wisconsin. She's a very devout Irish Catholic, an American, but of Irish descent, very devout. She and her husband are both very devout. And like us, by the way, they have two children, both of them adopted. Anyway, long story short, she sent me a news clip of Pope Francis. And she said, I can't believe that a pope would talk like this. And Francis was attacking his conservative opponents in the church. And he literally referred to them as, I cannot say this word on the air because I'm going to get fined, but basically excrement, feces, crap. Okay, let me take out the first letter, hit. He goes, they're no better than excrement. They're no better than, I can't say it. And I'm like, what? Like, first of all, you're the Pope. How do you talk like this? That's number one, against anybody, literally anybody. But against your own fellow Catholics? Because, we waged a jihad against the Latin Mass, against Catholic traditionalists, against conservatives who oppose them on issue after issue after issue. And I'm like, you're defaming them and vilifying them like this with that kind of language? I was shocked. I was sickened. Like my stomach, I'm not kidding. I'm going to throw up. And the other one, and to this day, it stays in my mind. I can't get out. When you have the blessing, the privilege, especially as a Catholic, obviously, of actually seeing any pope in person, it's a huge deal. And what do Catholics do? They always kiss the ring, right? You hold the hand and you kiss the ring. Well, he was outside. This was outside of the Vatican, and there were tourists there. Some Italians obviously were there, and wow, it's the Pope, and they were so excited. And there's a line that starts to form, and they start walking up to him, and it's out there on the internet. You can see it, and people are trying to kiss his ring, which is customary, and yet he keeps pulling his hand back. It was unbelievable. Every time somebody tried to grab his hand and kiss his ring, he pulls his hand back. And then the next person tries to kiss the ring, he pulls his hand back. And he kept doing this over and over again. And you can tell these parishioners were like, what's his problem? What is wrong with him? They're like, we want to kiss your ring. And it's like, no, to me, again, I know what he was trying to do. He's the people's Pope. He's a humble man. He doesn't like heirs. But that to me was almost a form of communism, where you're denying the hierarchy and the very legitimacy and the grandeur of the Pope, of the papacy. This is a tradition that goes back to time immemorial, where you kiss, that's why the famous expression, kiss the ring. It comes from kissing the ring of the Pope. And when he saw that, honestly, I'm like, this is borderline satanic. Like, someone needed to say, hey, buddy, what you're doing, This is theologically, you're out of bounds. You're degrading the very authority of the papacy when you do this. This is a tradition rooted in the Catholic Church going back over a millennium. Who the hell are you to just discard it like this because you feel like it? Because, I don't know, you think it'll make you more of a populist or a, quote, man of the people. So I saw those two things, and then especially when he did his big outreach to the Muslim world, which now Leo has completed, fulfilled. Well, you know, he's the one that started this whole peaceful coexistence, and the way he defended open borders, and the way he publicly came out in favor of Joe Biden, again and again and again, who was waging an internal war and persecution of Catholics. And I said, no, he's the Obama of the Catholic Church. I said, there's no question. He is trying to subvert the church from within. Anyway, I don't want to go on and on. Books have been written about the conclave that elected Pope Francis, and it is beyond shocking. Those were blocks voting as blocks, the left voting as a block to put him in, you know, to get him over the top, which is, it's not just frowned upon. It is immoral. It is forbidden. You cannot vote as a block for the Pope. It has to be in you and sort of with the Holy Spirit in deep reflection about who you think will be the best person for the job. You can't do a canvassing campaign as they did. Okay, well, you vote for him, and you vote for him, and if we vote for him, he's going to appoint you this, and he's going to appoint you this. Like, you know, political horse trading. I mean, that is so verboten, so forbidden, that when I heard that and when I read it, I'm like, have these people no fear of God? You just can't do that, because it calls into question then the very legitimacy of the papacy. So now I haven't heard anything like that regarding Pope Leo, but I definitely know this occurred under Pope Francis. So I'm just, you know, I'm giving you really now inside baseball stuff. But look, there's no question, in a nutshell, the radical left has now hijacked the Vatican. And I think it's now time for Catholics to speak out, and for conservatives to speak out, and really for all honest men and women to speak out. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. 8 o'clock, you know what that means. Kuhner's Call Log, Caller of the Week.
It's time for Kuhner's Call Log, where we showcase our favorite caller from the week.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Thanks for holding, Bill.
Hello, Jeff. Good morning. I agree with you on the plastic bag. It's kind of performative nonsense. Not to mention, aren't green trash bags single-use plastic bags? Aren't sandwich bags single-use plastic bags? They have a whole aisle in the supermarket of single-use plastic bags there for sale.
Yes.
So I agree, right. It's performative nonsense. I think they've sort of trained a lot of people to use reusable bags. I haven't done that yet, but I have noticed that an awful lot of people are now using reusable shopping bags.
Yes.
Some towns have already done it themselves, and I would like to sort of go back and look and see what the result of doing it for the past year or two, but I agree with you, it's nonsense.
And next week, it could be you on Kuhner's Call Log.
Please, don't be a stranger. Call again. Hell froze over. Pigs fly. I mean, you know, whatever. Whatever expression you want to use. Bill in Sudbury. Let me say that again. Bill in Sudbury. Caller of the week. No, really. It's a miracle. Speaking of the Church, the Pope, and the Vatican, somebody contact the Vatican. We have a real-life miracle here. I got to say, though, doesn't he sound rational? And you listen to this call, you're like, is this a different Bill? Is he maybe on his medication? I mean, I don't know what it is. but I hope it's the beginning of a new bill. Okay, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to play to you now. These are the two cuts, and it now tells you everything you need to know. This is now the Pope, what he stands for, and the larger meaning of this feud or argument or debate, whatever you want to call it, between Pope Leo and President Trump. Roll cut. Now, this is Pope Leo. He's on the papal plane. And as you know now, he's been visiting Muslim countries in Africa. He signed the Golden Book in the Grand Mosque of Algiers, which now signifies a religious alliance. They've cemented or forged a religious alliance between the church and Islam. From this point forward, Islam and the church are now religious, theological allies. And to the point that the Vatican now even has a prayer room for Muslims. Muslims do not allow a prayer room in any mosque for non-Muslims, Christians, Jews, whatever. But now the Vatican has a prayer room for Muslims. And now Leo says, according to this new religious agreement, that Islam is on an equal par with Christianity, and that from this point forward, there is now nothing but eternal friendship and peaceful coexistence between Christians and Muslims. Listen now to Pope Leo on the plane, saying when it comes now to the Muslim invasion of Europe, the problem is not the Muslims. The problem are the Europeans resisting the invasion. Roll cut 20, Mike.
In Europe, there are many. I know that in Europe, there are many times fears that are present, but oftentimes generated by people who are against immigration and trying to keep out people who may be from another country, another religion, another race. And in that sense, I would say that we all need to work together. One of the values of this trip is precisely to raise the world's attention to the possibility that dialogue and friendship between Muslims and Christians is possible.
So basically what he's saying is the opposition to this unlimited immigration, especially from the Muslim world, is what's causing the tension in Europe, the anxiety, the problem in Europe. It's not the immigration itself. In fact, the immigration itself is a good thing. So what he's calling for, as I said earlier, is this is a theological, moral, intellectual defense for the disarming of Europe. For Europe now to welcome tens and tens and tens of millions of Muslims, already on top of the millions and millions and millions who have already poured in over the last 10 years. It is now to render Europe morally, theologically defenseless in the face of this Muslim onslaught. But then he goes even further. This is where he says, I have a model, an example for the Christian world to follow. What is that model? I don't know. Is it Poland? Is it Hungary? Is it Croatia? Is it, these countries that have held out against Muslim migration? No. It's Lebanon. Roll cut 20A, Mike.
I think one of the great lessons that Lebanon can teach to the world is precisely showing a land where Islam, Christianity are both present and are respected, and that there is a possibility to live together, to be friends. Stories, testimony, witnesses that we heard even in the past 2 days of people helping each other, Christians with Muslims, both of whom had their villages destroyed, for example, of saying we can come together and work together. I think those are lessons that would be important also to be heard in Europe or North America.
Now, did you catch that last bit? I want to play it again because I'm not trying to insult the man, but his delivery Francis was more animated when he spoke and more colorful. So this Pope can put you to sleep. I'm not trying to be insulting. He's just very low key, very monotone the way he speaks. You kind of like, your mind drifts away as he talks. Mike, do me a favor. Play me the last 10 seconds again because this is the key. Go ahead, Mike.
They had their villages destroyed, for example, of saying we can come together and work together. I think those are lessons that would be important also to be heard in Europe or North America.
Europe and North America. So what he's saying is Lebanon is a model, not just for the Middle East. No. But for Europe and North America. Well, what is Europe and North America? It is the West. That's the West. I mean, Australia and New Zealand as well, but basically that's the West. And what is he saying? The Lebanon model. Follow the Lebanon model. Because there, look, you have Muslim and Christian coexistence. Well, as I said earlier, what Lebanon proves beyond a shadow of a doubt is the exact opposite of peaceful coexistence. It's where you have originally a Christian country invaded by Muslims, and then a 15-year civil war where Christians are absolutely butchered, and then the Muslim minority becomes the Muslim majority, and now it's, for all intents and purposes, effectively run by Hezbollah. So you have the Christian subjugation to Islam. And you're telling us that's the model for Europe and the West? Are you crazy? It's surrender. It's surrender, masquerading as quote-unquote peaceful dialogue. Okay, you can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. This is from 781. Jeff, you are completely right. It is mind-boggling to see all of these pro-abortion, pro-transgender, anti-family Democrats who don't even want the Ten Commandments in public schools now all of a sudden claim that they're quote-unquote offended on behalf of the Pope in this feud with President Trump. Their hypocrisy knows no bounds. Bingo. That's welcome to my world, my friend. Okay. Speaking of Lebanon, this is from a very good family friend. She's in Montreal. She was born and raised in Montreal. Her parents are from Egypt. She's a Coptic Christian, and we know her very, very well. We're actually very good friends with her. Also, there's a lot of Arabs Christian Arabs in Montreal. So I've had a lot of Egyptian friends, a lot of Lebanese friends, And so they've told me about Lebanon and why so many of them had to leave Lebanon. So believe me, I know the story of Lebanon almost better than anybody. Well, she's an Egyptian Coptic Christian. She married a Lebanese Christian. So her husband is Lebanese. She's Egyptian Coptic. And this is what she wrote. Jeff, hi. As always, I listen to your show every morning as I'm getting lunch boxes for the kids and breakfast ready. And as you know, my husband is a Lebanese Christian. This morning, when he walked into the kitchen, I asked him, quote, have Muslims and Christians ever peacefully coexisted in Lebanon? He answered simply, no. Later, my 15-year-old daughter told me that during recess, a classmate asked whether Lebanon is a Muslim or a Christian country. My daughter's Muslim friend responded that it is a Muslim country. Later on, my daughter privately replied to the classmate that Lebanon used to be a Christian majority country. but it is now overpopulated by Muslims ever since they've invaded the country and slaughtered many Lebanese Christians. Sadly, and she's very devout. This is a very devout woman we're talking about, forgive me. Sadly, the Pope is ignorant. That's the charitable view. Her name is Valia. She's a wonderful woman. I've met her husband. Obviously, I know her children, wonderful kids. And Valia is she's a very devout, wonderful Christian. Heart of gold. And that's Valia. She always gives you the charitable perspective. I'm a little more cynical, but that's me. 617-266-6868 is the number. Bob in Raynham. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. How's it going?
Good. How are you, Bob?
Good. A few things. First of all, when the Pope was selected, I kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit because he was an American, and I actually had the cynical view that there might be something like what's going on now would happen. Secondly, I'm a lifelong Christian, sister school, altar boy, the whole bit. But ever since the sex abuse scandal, I will probably never step foot in the Catholic Church again. And the Catholic Church has done tremendous damage to society because they lost their moral authority to speak out on anything. And now I think, as you said, it's comical. This is a classic case of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. All these lefties coming out in support of the Pope, who I'm sure most of them are non-believers or whatever, but because he's opposing Trump, they're his buddy now. And also, one more thing is, I believe the New World Order runs really deep, and as either you or a previous caller said, they had to, the Catholic Church is a huge, it was at one time a huge voice of, society, and if they toe the line, as it appears they're doing now, they will be again, and they'll do a lot of damage.
Well, look, Bob, the thing about the Catholic Church at its very core is that it is naturally an anti-communist institution. If you're a true Catholic, you are automatically an anti-communist. And that's why during the Cold War, the most ferocious anti-communists were Catholics. So in its theology, in its history, in its worldview, in everything, in its teachings, its fundamental teachings, it is a completely anti-communist institution. Everything communism stands for, the church opposes. Everything the church stands for, communism opposes. And that's why wherever communism reared its ugly head, its number one mission, yes, to stamp out Christianity, no question, but the number one enemy was the Catholic Church. So what you're seeing now is a big play by the globalists. It began under Francis. It's now accelerating under Pope Leo. And I see the hand of Obama in this, to subvert the Catholic Church from within. This is from 508. Jeff, this is an insidious plan. Obama wants to destroy the church, and his motivation is simply to get rid of Donald Trump. And when you consider how they have turned the world upside down, I mean the Democrats, to try and get rid of Trump. Democrats have tried everything. And I believe this too, in the end, will fail. But what we're seeing is now an unholy alliance between Pope Leo XIV and Barack Obama and the Democrats. In fact, Jeff, The Pope sounds like Obama. Same mentality. He is the supreme useful idiot. I wonder if he knows or if he thinks he's being some sort of champion. Well, I think he does. I think there's no question. I think he loves the Pope now. I think Pope Leo loves the media attention. He loves it now that he's become a rock star to the media. And I think there's no question. You're seeing now a political coalition, an alliance between Pope Leo from Chicago, arch-Democrat, as I said, when he was Cardinal Robert Prevost, post after post on Twitter, bashing Trump, bashing Vance, bashing the Republicans, calling for gun control, going on about the need for open borders, not to deport illegals, but to invite more illegals. So clearly he's an Obama leftist. And now he's actively colluding with the Obama political machine to coordinate attacks and bring down President Trump. And it's not going to work. If anything, I think it's undermine his authority, it's undermine his prestige, and ultimately it's undermining his legitimacy. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I just want to play one clip, and then I want to get your reaction to it. So the line now that's being used by the media, and by the way, the church is now using the same line. After Pope Leo was exposed as a radical leftist in this feud with Trump, what the church then did was they put out 3 U.S. cardinals. Not one, not two, but 3 of them. All of them liberal. And they put them out on 60 Minutes. And what did they talk about on 60 Minutes? How great Pope Leo is, how horrible President Trump is, how we need more illegal immigration, how we have to reopen the borders as we saw under Biden, and how Trump's agenda must be stopped. I mean, honestly, it's pathetic. But you can see now the hierarchy of the church is becoming politicized. It's becoming an extension of the Democratic Party, which is the worst thing you can do to a church. By the way, that's why you oppose church and state. That's why you want, you don't never want the unity of church and state. You always want the separation of church and state. Because if the church gets too close to the state, then the corruption of the state, of politics, begins to then corrupt the church. So this is a massive mistake on every level, what they're doing right now. Now, listen to this, because now the church is arguing, and the media is parroting this argument, that, he's just talking about the gospel. Pope Leo is just talking about the message and the teachings of the gospel. And if you just go by the gospel, well, President Trump has no case with his war with Iran. And he has no case on building a wall. And he has no case on securing the border. And he has no case on deporting illegal aliens. And I guess he has no case to impose tariffs. And he has no case to cut government spending or waste, fraud, and abuse. And, of course, you should be giving welfare to illegals. Because, it's all there in the gospel. Jesus said, thou shalt feed the illegals with your taxpayer money. Listen now to President Trump. He's on the White House lawn. And the media now is saying, Leo is preaching the gospel. He has every right to interfere in American politics because his message is the message of the good, the message of God, the message of the weak, the poor, and the underprivileged. Roll cut 5, Mike.
There's a group of bishops that did put out a statement saying the Pope isn't merely exercising his opinion, he's preaching the gospel. I mean, what do you say to people that do this?
Well, I want him to preach the gospel. I'm all about the gospel. But I also know that you cannot let a certain country, which is a very mean-spirited country, have a nuclear weapon. If they did, they would use it, and I think they'd use it quickly, and they would kill many millions of people. So the Pope could disagree with me on that, but certainly we're allowed to have that. I'm all about the gospel. I'm about it as much as anybody can be. But I can't allow, as President of the United States of America, I can't allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. And here's the story. They won't have. They've already agreed not to have. That's good news, and I think the Pope will be very happy.
Again, very graceful. I thought very charitable on the part of Trump. And by the way, he was asked point blank, do you want to meet with the Pope to, iron out your differences? And he said no. He said there's no need. I know where he stands. He knows where I stand. And I have nothing against him personally. And, we're just going to have to agree to disagree. But my point is this. Now the media cares about, quote unquote, the message of the gospel. So how about a culture of life? How about, let's say abortion? Because I'll tell you this, the gospel, they're not big on killing babies. I'm just going to say it right now. Then what did the left says? Stay out of politics. Separation of church and state. You have no right. You have no right to advocate for the unborn. Now, all of a sudden, it's the gospel. It's the gospel. How about the church's opposition to transgenderism? Whenever they say anything, what did the media say? Hey, separation of church and state. Keep your mouth shut. You don't have a right to talk about the dignity of the individual or the natural order between men and women. Keep your mouth shut. So, you see, when it suits them politically, the gospel. In other words, to go after Trump. When it doesn't suit their agenda, then it's separation of church and state. You phonies, you frauds, you. No, if I'm President Trump, this is my response. Show me in the gospel where it says Iran can have a nuclear bomb. Is the Pope now arguing that before I make a foreign policy decision, I got to call him up? I've got to he wants a veto on U.S. foreign policy? Seriously, I got to call him up and say, hey, I'm thinking of going to war with Iran. My people are telling me they're close to a bomb. You want to see the evidence? Should Marco Rubio fly down or Pete Hegseth and show you sensitive classified information? To get your blessing on this. So what now? The Pope is a co-president? Is this now the new argument the media is trying to push? And the Vatican is trying to push? So, no, why should I'm sorry, I'm the President of the United States. Why should I bow to the political dictates of the church? So, Leo can be political and act like a politician and frankly like a Democratic hack, and I can't tell him to get lost? Now, let me just say one last thing, and then I want to go to the blazing phone lines. 617-266-6868 is the number. The reason why this story has such legs and it's captured so much attention, because what you're really watching now is a battle between the two most powerful Americans in the world. Okay, before Mike cut me off, and he's a happy man now, because that his mission for the day is accomplished. Because he looks to cut me off at least, every show. If he hasn't cut me off, he's not a happy man. So he managed to cut me off. Let me just finish my point, and then I'm going to go right to the phone lines. So what you're now seeing is a clash between really the two most powerful Americans in the world. Obviously, the President of the United States, that goes without saying, and the American Pope, Pope Leo XIV. And what this public confrontation clearly shows is that the Pope is a man of the globalist left. And Trump is a man of the nationalist right, or the populist right. And here they stand. And Leo clearly is siding with Islam. There's now no question. He is siding with the globalists, no question. With the European Union, the leadership of the European Union, no question. And he is siding with the Democratic Party in their war against the president. And what he's done is he's expanded this attack or this offensive, this theological, ideological, political offensive against all of the populist conservative parties across Europe. And he's now basically commanding them, you cannot be opposed to unlimited immigration, you cannot be for secure borders, and you cannot oppose the invasion of Islam. The Catholic Church has, let's put it this way, this is not the Catholic Church of the last 2,000 years. This is now what you're seeing under Francis and now being finalized under Leo is a very, very, very different Catholic Church, at least when it comes to the hierarchy and the leadership. Down on the ground, that's a different story. Among ordinary parishioners and priests, and that's something else. But I'm saying at the highest level within the Vatican, at the leadership, at 40,000 feet, as they say, this is now a very different church. 617-266-6868. John on the Cape. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
No, this liberalism is trickled all the way down to the priests. Don't forget the one over Christmas, the one in Dedham.
So, that's a very good point.
That's not why I've called.
Oh, I know, but that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. Keep going, John.
What I'm about to say, Jeff, and I respect you immensely. I really do. I listen to you every day. But what I'm about to say, I'm a Christian, but I'm not a Catholic. I'm a follower of Christ. But what I'm about to say may upset you. I know you may not believe some of this, and that's okay. And it's going to upset probably a lot of Catholics. I know Dave in Pittsburgh will agree with me. If Catholics really knew their Bible, studied their Bible, read it every day, they would understand what is unfolding right now. We are seeing Jesus is going to return. There is a rapture. He's promised that he's going to return and take up his church. Now, after that, the Antichrist is going to come on scene. He's going to usher in a one-world religion. We're seeing the table being set for that. There's going to come before him a false prophet. And he's going to lure the world into just bowing before him. He's going to help now the tribulation is going to be 7 years. The first 3.5 years, he's going to bring a false peace, the Antichrist will. He's going to bring global peace. He's going to be very eloquent. You think Obama's eloquent speaker. This guy's got it all over him. He's going to be very handsome. He's going to be a political figure. And he's going to draw all the world. He's going to fool people. We're seeing the church, not just Catholicism, but many denominations. They're not preaching the truth. They're preaching false truth. So now we're seeing this unfolding. The table's being set for a one-world religion. Now, it says that people are going to be required to take a mark. The Antichrist is going to require this because the first 3.5 years, he's going to bring peace. The second 3.5 is when he's going to really show his true colors. The first 3.5, he's going to help the Jews rebuild their temple. The second 3.5, he's going to come against the Jews. He's going to desecrate the temple. He's going to show his true colors. This is when he's going to unleash all hell on earth. It'll be like nothing anybody has ever seen or experienced. So and then he's going to require everybody to take a mark and bow down to him, and if they don't, they're going to be killed. Now, the Bible in Revelation, it's very specific how they're going to be killed. They're going to be beheaded. So from this, I believe Islam is going to be the one world religion because they're the only religion in the world that kills people by beheading. People need to wake up.
Well, look, John, very powerful, very, very powerful. Look, I would just say this. I've always been skeptical when people say, oh, we're approaching the end of days or Armageddon or the apocalypse, or because it's been predicted over and over and over again, going back thousands of years. And every prediction has turned out to be wrong. And I could easily cite here, I think the 30s and 40s would be an example of a period infinitely worse than what we live in now. I mean, if you want to make an argument for the Antichrist, Hitler, Stalin, Mao, communism, Nazism, World War, 50 million dead, mushroom clouds, nuclear bombs. So what I'm just saying is, and I'm not diminishing your faith in any way, shape, or form or your belief. I'm just saying I'm skeptical on that. I think I could be wrong. We'll see. But I think planet Earth and human beings have a lot more time left in us. What is clear, and I can just go by the record. Okay, I can just go by evidence, facts, and history, which is undeniable. Since the inception of Islam, 1,500 years ago, they are spreading, and the Christian world is receding. That's just a fact. So, and other religions are receding. I'm talking Judaism, Hinduism, it doesn't matter. Islam is always on the offensive. It is always growing. It is always expanding. That's just a fact. They take over more countries. They take over more continents. And the one place where they were blocked, and it took hundreds and hundreds of years, an unbelievable sacrifice in both blood and treasure, was Europe. Because Europe was the cradle of Christianity. It's just a fact. And so, if they could take Europe, they could take the world. And, somebody said, Jeff, could you give me the history? Let everybody know the history. It's long. There's a lot to it. But let me just tell you this. When I went to Croatia last year to visit my parents' ancestral homeland, and Ashton really wanted to come, so I took him with me. And what we did was we visited castles, forts, castles and buildings that were, there for 1,000 years. And it was almost funny. But, we're climbing these beautiful castles, medieval castles, or from the Renaissance. And, John, I'm telling you, Ashton would be like, oh, what is this for? I said, oh, well, that's the castle when the Muslims tried to invade in 1137. And that was the castle that was built that beat them back. Oh, wow. Hey, Dad, okay, then we go to a fort, or a beautiful fort. And, Dad, what's this? Well, that's the fort that the Muslims took in 1213. Really, Dad? Yeah. So when did we get it back? Oh, let me take a look here. Oh, it took about 100 years. So what I'm saying is, and by the way, ditto for France, ditto for Italy, ditto for Serbia, ditto for the Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland. You go to these countries and it's like, wow, it's beautiful buildings and castles and architecture and it's like, yeah, and you read and it's like, yeah, the Muslims tried to invade and so we beat them back. And then they came back and they actually won that time and they occupied us for 40 years or 50 years or 60 years. And then we had to beat them back again. And so that's why this castle is here, or that's why this fort is here, or that's why this fortification is here, or that's why this beautiful church was built in commemoration of this great victory and the fact that our faith is what saved us. That's the history of Europe. I mean, in a nutshell, that's what it is. That's why people say it's almost like walking through a museum. And that's any European country. You're like, it's history upon history, but so much of it is intertwined with the Ottoman Empire and the the Muslim world trying to invade the Christian West. What to me is heartbreaking, and I'm speaking now as a man of the West, not just as a devout Christian, okay, a Catholic, but as a man just of the West, because I am a man of the West. We're just letting him in. I mean, this is pathetic. And it's changing. Europe is changing. Britain is changing. Ireland is changing. France is changing. Italy is changing. It's not that you're letting in 10 here, 20 there, 100 there. Mosques are replacing churches. Arabic is being spoken everywhere. Islam is flourishing everywhere. They're not assimilating. They refuse to assimilate. And now they're actively trying to subvert the cultures of the West. They don't want Germany to be German. They don't want Spain to be Spanish. And you now have a pope, started with the last one, but now it's really been finalized with this one, that is saying, pull the drawbridge down. Don't pull it up and prevent them from, storming the walls. No, put the drawbridge down and just let them come. And not just let them come. They're our brothers and our sisters. Kiss them on both cheeks. They're us. We're just like them. And then the example that he uses, this is the part that really gives me chills. Because what people don't know, and I really want to credit 603 who texted me. Okay, Kevin. Kevin, if you're listening, he's a wonderful fan of the show, lives in New Hampshire, drives a truck, and he goes to Montreal quite often. He's a truck driver. And he said, Jeff, please tell everybody, no city in North America has more Lebanese Christians than Montreal. That's true. That's why I know so many of them. That's why many of them are my friends and Grace's friends. And why are they in Montreal? Like, why is there this army of Lebanese Christians in Montreal? Why? Because they like the food? What, they like to freeze to death in the winter? What, they love hockey? No. Because every single one will tell you, we were driven out of Lebanon. We were massacred in Lebanon by Muslim militia after Muslim militia after Muslim militia. And they're the ones saying, what are you doing letting them in? Are you crazy? Are you nuts? Like, how many times do they have to show you what they do before you wake up and realize, you're not bringing in Jews. You're not bringing in Buddhists and Hindus and Hare Krishnas and, you're not bringing in the Mormons. You're not bringing in Quakers. Pacifists and we just live on the farm and leave us alone. That's not what you're bringing in. Islam means submission. And their ultimate goal is a caliphate, a world empire, a global empire. And to them, the Prophet Muhammad is the word of Allah. It's literally, to them, the Quran is literally the word spoken to Muhammad by Allah. That's why every Muslim must imitate Muhammad. Well, what was Muhammad? He was a warrior. What was Muhammad? He was a polygamist. What was Muhammad? He had child brides. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. And how did Islam spread under Muhammad? You think it was like Jesus? Poor guy on a donkey with the 12 apostles? And he's just preaching and talking and performing miracles and healing the sick? No, they spread by the sword. So to them, they're all, jihad is the essence of the Muslim faith. And now the Pope is saying to Europe, and it doesn't matter whether you're Catholic or not, because the Pope has that kind of pull and respect and authority across Europe. It just is. Many Protestants look up to the Pope. They don't believe in the Pope. I get the theology. But when he talks, they listen. He has a lot of authority with them, with everybody. And when the Pope says, no, we got to peacefully coexist, and the model is Lebanon. Lebanon. Now, I don't want to repeat myself, but I'm getting nothing but texts from my Lebanese friends in Montreal. They're losing their minds. They're like, either this guy's incredibly stupid, I mean, really ignorant, like just doesn't know what he's talking about, brain dead, stone cold stupid, or he wants Europe and North America to become like Lebanon, which means the Muslim takeover of a Christian civilization. Now, I don't care if it's door 1 or door 2. Door 2 to me is evil. Door 1 is reckless and irresponsible. We got a problem. The Vatican has a problem. Christianity itself has a problem. And I believe the West now has a problem. And the only man, I got to give him credit, is willing to stand up and call him out is President Donald Trump. And I got to tell you, really, this is the part that blows my mind away. How the hell do the Democrats get their reach into the freaking Vatican? I got to give them credit. So the Democratic Party is now essentially running the Vatican? You're stunned, you're shell-shocked. And that's why this Pope has to be called out. You know, we're not disagreeing on a little bit of doctrine here or on the liturgy, or we're talking now about the most basic civilizational question. Do we have the right to protect our borders from a foreign religion that seeks to submit and subjugate us? And the answer now, coming from a church that fought Islam, my ancestors going back 500 years, someone mentioned Pope Leo X earlier, those literally were the Kuhners. In Croatia, the ramparts of Christendom. Behind us was Vienna. So Pope Leo X said, look at these Croatians fighting like warriors, throwing everything they have to stop the Ottoman Empire from making a play. If Vienna fell, Rome fell. If Rome fell, Europe fell. And that's why the very famous definition of Croatia as the ramparts or the bulwark, depends how you interpret the Latin, the ramparts or the bulwark of Christendom. That's why when you go to the country, they're so proud of their Christian Catholic heritage. The Croatians are looking, and the Poles, what? You go to Catholic Poland now and say, you know what the Pope just said? They're in stunned disbelief. They're like, so 2,000 years we fought with everything we had, sacrificed everything we had, and now we're just supposed to let them in? This is very bad for the Catholic Church. But more importantly, it's very bad for the West. Mark my words. And that's why I'm sorry. Catholics, and my wife is very mad at me. I'm getting text after text. Here, I'll tell you what she's saying. How come Catholics are the only people that bash their own church? Jews don't do it. Protestants don't do it. Orthodox Christians don't do it. But Catholics do it. Why are we the only ones that keep doing this? How come you don't talk about the great work of the church? Its outstanding theology, the great works that it's done for millennium, and how it's really one of the crown jewels of world civilization. Sure, it's a human institution. It's flawed, of course. She's saying, no, you're just going after Leo. And by doing this, you're undermining the church. And I'm like, I take no pleasure in this. Believe me. I never thought the day would come that I would be doing this. But we're supposed to leave this unanswered and pretend it's not happening? We're supposed to just bury our heads in the sand? And again, not to repeat myself, he meets with David Axelrod in private on behalf of Obama. And now they start coordinating their talking points to tear down Trump. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And this is now dividing Catholics all over the world, here in the United States, families, churches, as I mentioned, the Knights of Columbus, you can go on and on. Why would you do that? And so when you say we should be like Lebanon, you are asking us to commit civilizational suicide. Okay, this just broke 2 minutes ago. So fingers crossed, I hope it holds. But Iran has just announced that they are completely reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Now that Israel and Lebanon have a ceasefire, the ceasefire apparently is holding. They now say, okay, to honor the ceasefire between Iran and the United States, they are now completely reopening the strait, and apparently commercial shipping now is being allowed to go through. President Trump has now gone on Truth Social, and he now says that the strait is wide open again. And what this shows, hopefully, is that tensions are easing and that they may be now very close to a deal. President Trump's been saying this now for a good 24, maybe even 48 hours, that they are very, very close to a final deal. He now even says he's willing to fly to Islamabad, the capital of Pakistan, and to meet, I guess, with the president of Iran, and to sign a full-fledged peace deal and permanent peace agreement. So we'll see if anything more develops, but this is clearly a very good positive sign. So fingers crossed. 617-266-6868 is the number. Frank in South Carolina. Thanks for holding, Frank, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hi,
I'll
Frank.
tell you, the reason why I listen to you every single day is because not only you tell truth, but to tell you the truth, I think you're in a league by yourself. I mean, you're not paying me to say this, but, I agree with you all the time. It's, and you're such a good historian, and you know so much. And I think you're one of the smartest guys in the country. I'm just very impressed by all the things you say on the airwaves, and not only that, your callers. But I find you an amazing guy.
Really?
And
wow.
God bless
well,
you.
Frank, thank
God bless
you. Oh, Frank, could I use you in my home? Oh, could I have you talk to my wife and my kids? But thank you. That's a very, very kind compliment. I don't think I deserve it, but thank you very, very much, Frank. Frank, my friend, what do you make of all this?
Well, to tell you the truth, I was in Woburn, Mass. I used to live in Woburn, Mass. And one time I went to church. I helped the church for over 45 years, the Catholic Church. And I wore a Trump T-shirt in church. And a lot of the people know me because I was there for so many years. And they would say to me, I like your shirt, I like your shirt. Well, the following week, I wore a different Trump shirt, and nothing disrespectful or anything. You know that saying, it takes a lifetime to build a reputation, and it takes a second to lose it?
Yes.
All right. Well, the pastor came up to me one time after church, and he said, I'd like to talk to you. I said, yeah, okay. I said, what's it about? He goes, I heard last week you wore a Trump T-shirt to church with the middle finger on it. I said, what? I said, what? Why would I do that? I said, did you see it? And he, of course, he didn't see it. How could he see it? Because I don't even think they make one. So I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So we had a discussion. Oh, it was maybe about a minute. And I know there was a lot of people around there. And I know he wears the collar and I don't. But I told him, I said, the conversation got a little heated. And I said to him, you know what? He goes, don't come back here. So I said, what? He goes, don't come back here. I called the...
Frank, really? He said that to you?
Yes, he did.
Now, Frank, let me ask you this. Please be brutally honest with me. Did you say, I don't know, did you use the F-bomb? Did you insult him? Because it happens in an argument or a debate. You know, people get heated and they say things later they regret. Did you say anything that was insulting or demeaning to the priest where you could say, well, you know, I was a little out of line and that's why he got upset? Did you do that, or was it just you saying, no, I didn't do anything wrong? There was no shirt with a middle finger. It's not true. Did you use any profanity or obscenity in any way, shape, or form, Frank?
Nope. But I'll tell you one thing. I think I insulted him because I guess when they wear the collar, they don't like to be put in their place. So I told him, I said, you know, I didn't come here to worship you. I came here to worship God. And I think that struck a nerve. Because sometimes when they wear the collar, they don't like to be put in their place. So, no, I don't care. So I called the, what is that? Is that the Archbishop in Boston or something?
Yes, the Archdiocese. Yeah, the Archdiocese.
Right. So I called them and I spoke to a certain higher up in there, and I let them know what happened. And, you know, the priest, because I've seen a lot of priests in this church come and go. And the priest would always say to me, the different ones would always say to me, Frank, you're always here. But you know what? Last Sunday was what, April 12th? I think.
Yes. Frank, we're up against it. What, you didn't go to church?
Well, now I'm all done with the Catholic Church. I'm all done with them.
I'm sorry to hear that. Frank, I'm very, very sorry to hear that. But no, that priest was wrong. Joining us now, as she always does at this time, she is the co-founder, CEO, and president of Kelly Financial Services. And yes, that is her wonderful name, Kelly. Kelly, how are you?
Good morning, Jeff. I am good. Retirement isn't just about how much you've saved. It's about how well you've prepared for what you didn't see coming. Some of the biggest expenses in retirement are the ones people don't plan for. Things like healthcare gaps, home repairs, helping family, or simply living longer and wanting to enjoy your time. Those are the real life moments that can quietly put pressure on a plan. And that's where we see many plans fall short. They're built on ideal scenarios, not real life. That's exactly why I wrote Retire Your Fear, Plan Your Future. It's designed to help you think differently about retirement, how to organize what you have today and prepare for the unexpected so you can move forward with clarity and confidence. If you'd like a copy, give us a call or email us at kelly@kellyfinancial.org. Jeff, I'll continue this conversation tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on Safe Money Strategies Radio. Do tune in or visit our website for the Radio Rewind. Jeff, have a wonderful weekend. My best to Grace and the kiddos.
Thank you, Kelly. All the best to you and everyone at Kelly Financial. To get a copy of that book, Retire Your Fear, Plan Your Future by Kelly. And I urge all of you, if you can, do get it. Call now, 888-800-1881, 888-800-1881, or you can actually email Kelly herself personally, kelly@kellyfinancial.org. That's kelly@kellyfinancial.org. 9:34 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just super quick. Let me just play you one more cut. This is President Trump, White House lawn, and the reporter asks, well, I don't know if you've heard, but the mullahs are now accelerating their executions of people who they think, they believe or are charging with having opposed the regime or supported the U.S. bombing. Listen to Trump's response. I thought it was funny, very witty, and very much on point. Roll cut 6, Mike.
Going to execute 4 more protesters, reportedly, including the first woman protester. What do you tell your
Well, tell that to the Pope. What did you say? Tell that to the Pope.
Tell that to the Pope. So apparently they're going to execute now the first female protester. So far, all the protesters who've been executed are men, but now they're going to execute the first female protester. And I mean, they're hanging them everywhere. They are hanging them everywhere. And Trump's point, which I think is an absolutely brilliant point, is, hey, don't lecture me about civilians being killed. Just look at what the mullahs are doing. So, why don't you condemn them for once? 617-266-6868. Kathy in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Kathy, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you. I'm sorry I've been in and out on the show today, so I may be a little repetitive, but I'm feeling kind of upset that the callers seem to be attacking the church in its totality, not just the person of the Pope. If people like to remind that the Pope, is not the church. He's a bishop of Rome, and he has to be in union with other bishops to do any religious proclamation or dogma. I think people are judging, like I say, the Catholic Apostolic Church by bad leaders. And that's been nothing new in history, like Julian the Apostate and others. Bishop Fulton Sheen, he'll be canonized in a few months, he said that the greatest punishment that God can give are bad clergy. And there is bad clergy. But the point I'd like to make, too, is betrayers started very beginning. Judas Iscariot. Jesus wasn't even crucified, and he was betrayed. Now, did Christians in the early church say, "Oh, Judas was betrayed. Judas is out, so I'm not following Jesus because of Judas"? I don't think so. So it's kind of sad, and I don't know what the reasons are. I think a lot of people have left the church, and this is an opportunity to criticize it because I've heard it. But my friends, we're all, Catholics, and we all don't like what's being said, but we're faithful. Like Peter said, where do we go, Lord? Where will we go? And just a funny thing, with the Crusades, everybody criticized the church, right, about the Crusades. Oh, they were overboard. Blah blah. How's that working for you now? Criticizing the Crusades, and that's my. You're dead on.
Kathy, you're absolutely dead on. I wish you had called sooner. That's my only complaint. I wish you had called sooner. Look, if you read about the Crusades, it was a limited, defensive reaction by the church and by the West, but the Catholic Church, because remember then there was no Protestant Reformation. So, the Catholic Church was Christianity or Christendom in the West, against a Muslim aggression and Muslim invasion. So, you're right. They just like to bash the Crusades, to bash Christianity and the church. You're completely right. And look, the church is a human institution. There are many bad doctors. By the way, I'm not trying to defend the church. To me, I think the sex abuse scandal was horrible, atrocious. But there are many more abuses of children in public schools. It's not even close. We don't say get rid of the public school system. There are many nurses and doctors who abuse their oath, molest people, murder people, kill people. We don't say get rid of medicine. So, and you're completely right about the clergy. The clergy, there's been a problem with the clergy literally since the beginning of the church, because that's just the nature of people. People are sinful, they're flawed, and, the church has very high standards, and many people can't live up to those standards. So, and by the way, I'm not bashing Protestants. I have nothing but respect for them. But you don't think there's problems with their clergy and their pastors? It's just the Catholic Church gets all the attention. Now, I can just tell you this. I've got a lot of Protestant churches, different denominations near my home. They've completely fallen to the woke Marxist left. I mean, honestly, it's sad. I mean, it's not even a church. It's a Black Lives Matter meeting hall or an LGBTQ office or, you know, the local office for the Democratic Party. You drive by the church. By the way, I don't think they have anybody going in anymore, any congregants. They have like one mass a week. That's it. By the way, everybody's always welcome, no matter what. You can believe whatever you want. You're welcome. And, you know, there's the transgender flag. There's the LGBTQ pride flag. There's the Black Lives Matter flag. Soon I'm probably going to see the flag of Iran, the Ayatollahs, the mullahs flag. Oh, the Ukraine flag, definitely. You don't see the American flag, but you see the Ukraine flag. So it's flag after flag. It's one trendy left-wing cause after another. And I'm like, yeah, wait, what is this, a church or a Democratic Party meeting? So all I'm just saying is, you know, I don't criticize Protestantism because there are some bad denominations or bad pastors. So I think you're completely right. And that's why people say, well, Jeff, why are you a Catholic? And I'm like, because to me, you go back the 2,000 years of history and everything the church has stood for and stands for to this day, this Pope notwithstanding, obviously. To me, this is a magnificent magisterial institution. It's one of the greatest institutions in the history of the world. I'm not saying to join it. I'm not saying to become a Catholic. I'm not proselytizing. I'm not. I'm just giving you my honest opinion. So this doesn't shake my faith at all. Kathy, quickly, do you think the sex abuse scandal and the cover-up by the church hierarchy, was that a PR black eye for the church? And I think that maybe explains a lot of the sense of frustration and betrayal. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree. That was horrific. That, like I say, the attacks on the church and the bullseye on the clergy's back. So I think Satan doubles attacks on the clergy because you look at the damage it's done. It's horrible. And, you know, there was a story of, I forget, I'm sorry who mentioned it, but there was a cardinal and he was talking to Napoleon. There's always been a revolution. They go for the church, Mexican, French. All the revolutions try to hit the church and knock the church out first. But a cardinal was talking to Napoleon, and Napoleon said, I will destroy your church. I will destroy it. And the cardinal said, good luck, because we haven't done it yet. So it's I know very many faithful priests, you know, you don't hear about that, you know, fellow Catholics, and we're just like, oh gosh, can't believe that. That's horrible. And it has done a lot of destruction, and it's sad. And that's why every Mass we pray for the Pope, pray for the church.
Amen. Look, I've met some outstanding priests. Really, honestly, stellar priests. John in Saugus. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for taking my call. I want to congratulate you on your knowledge and your fortitude and your courage, because it takes a lot of courage to say what you're saying today. Now, for number one, why don't we look at Marlo Thomas and her father, Danny Thomas? Were they Lebanese? Okay, that's number one. Number two, Fulton J. Sheen said that the laity will save the church. Don't count on your bishops or cardinals because they're all corrupt. Okay, and if you remember where this started with Leo the 13th, when he had the vision. And he had initiated the prayer of St. Michael the Archangel, and it was stopped at Vatican II. So this has been going on for a long time, but the fine blow became at Vatican II with the Moscow agreement, okay? And you know all about that. I don't have to tell you.
You and I are so on the same page.
You know all about
Sean, I got to tell you, Vatican II, let's put it this way, the Kuhner man is not a fan of Vatican II. And I could make, I think, a very good argument that the decline of the church began with Vatican II. I mean, I don't want to turn this into the, theology hour with Father Kuhner, but I'm with you, John. I think I'd love to have a do-over with Vatican II. Let's put it that way. But you're on a roll, my friend. Keep going.
this here. If we look at Fatima, okay, and I'm not trying to be a prophet here, but everything Our Lady prophesied to Fatima has come true except one thing, the annihilation of many nations, okay? Now, our Lord said, if he didn't shorten the days, okay, even the elect will be lost. Now, and I think of that, Jeff, I sweat. Okay? And Fulton Sheen all said, we will be saved by our ignorance. Because if we realize what we are really doing, how we're spitting at Christ's face when he's on that cross, and we still did it, there is no redemption. Only our ignorance of the fact when he says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And that's what's happening to people. I advise people to get on their knees. Don't talk about the Pope. You better pray for him. Because without praying for this Pope and this church, there is no salvation. I don't have much else to say, Jeff. I could go on for hours. But, matter of fact, you know everything that's in my head. And there's been a lot of good callers, very good callers.
Best callers.
I don't
best
agree
callers.
with them.
And John, I want to thank you for your courage and for your call. I really appreciate it, John. Obviously, he's a very devout Catholic. I will be praying. Really, I will be praying for this Pope. I do. And I hope he does turn around. I hope he does see the error of his ways. Because he's doing tremendous damage to him, to the papacy, and to the church. 617-266-6868 is the number. Kathy in Rochester. Thanks for holding, Kathy, and welcome.
Hello, Jeff. Listening to your show, today's show is phenomenal, and I hope that we are able to get this on a podcast so we can share with others, because I have a lot of Catholic friends. I'd like for them to listen to your entire show. So is it available late? Will it be available later today or Monday on a podcast?
It should be up.
Okay.
Mike, how quickly do you get it up, Mike? Mike? Okay, sorry, a podcast. How quickly do you get the podcast? The podcast. How quickly do you get that up, Mike? All right, by about 10:30, Kathy, it should be up.
I'm sick to my stomach because what Pope Leo is doing is sacrilegious. He is the leader of 1.3 billion Christians, and he's basically telling them we must accept, Muslims, that having the Muslims invade our countries and taking over is okay, and we should just accept it. And that is something I will not accept. You know what? I was just poking around a bit, just looking at what the Pope makes. Do you know that the Pope makes over $400,000 a year? He makes $33,800 a month. I really never knew their salary. That's just their salary. He lives for free, and you can find it on Economic Times. It's just amazing. So, in addition to his salary,
he gets his salary, really? I'm sorry. Kathy, are you talking about the president or the Pope?
Pope. So he makes $33,800 a month, but in addition, he has free housing, free food, free medical, free health
free medical care, free housing.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be fair, to me, I mean, what happened to the vow of poverty? In other words, you give your life to the church, and you don't own anything. So I figure, well, of course they're going to feed you and give you health care, and if you need transportation, give you a vehicle or something. But he makes $33,000 a month. Kathy, are you sure about that?
Jeff, you can go to Economic Times and read it. Just Google it, and it will come up in numerous places. But what makes me really sick to my stomach is the way that the Muslims treat women. The Muslim religion is so against what I have been taught as a Catholic. Whatever happens, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not commit adultery. He, as the Pope, is okay with the Muslims, with a Muslim man having 6 or 7 wives, treating women worse than dogs. I have a huge problem with that. And the fact that he met with David Axelrod, I mean, you nailed it when you said that the globalists they're taking over the church now. It makes me sick to my stomach that this Pope is allowing this to happen. And he is, approving of the Muslim religion. How could you? It's completely opposite of what the Christian religion is. And
it's antithetical. You're right. You're completely right. It's antithetical to the church. And it's antithetical to Christianity. It's antithetical to the West. It's antithetical to America. I mean, on so many levels, you're absolutely not 100. You're 1,000% correct. And look, many are texting me saying, Jeff, please say this. Please say this. It's true. In the Quran, They say Jesus is a servant of Allah. I mean, if as a Christian, I'm just saying, if you're a Christian, that's blasphemous. I mean, I'm not trying to start a religious war here. I'm just stating, in other words, if I'm advising the Pope, I'm like, the one we call the Son of Man, the Son of God, they think is a servant of Allah. They don't think he's the Son of God. They think he's there to do Allah's bidding. Like, and you're talking about peaceful coexistence and welcome them in? Ay, ay, ay.